Right, guys, all hear me well. So that's us coming on now. Let me just. What is the crack with you? Hope you are keeping well. Bringing Shawn in now. Shawn, how's it going, sir?
Hey.
I hear Maryland snowed in.
Oh yeah, it's coming down.
Yeah. We were speaking before. I'll just turn off these comments here because they sort of distract me. Guys, at the end, I'll be taking 15 minutes of comments, but I'll have to turn them off for now because it sort of distracts me from what I'm doing here. So, right. Maryland is snowed in, and Shawn has came and he's joined us today. And I couldn't believe it when I was speaking to Shawn. He says, I actually speak to serial killers. And I thought to myself, that's the weirdest thing anybody's ever said to me. But it's also the coolest thing, that anybody's ever said to me. But tonight we're going to break down John Wayne Gacy. So, first and foremost, you tell us a wee bit about yourself, and then we'll get into John Wayne Gacy.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I started being interested in serial killers a long time ago. A friend of mine gave me a book called Alone with the Devil, which was a psychiatrist who had interviewed various serial killers. And one of them was Richard Trenton Chase, also known as the Vampire of Sacramento. And I got real interested in him. I'll be honest with you, because of the name. I was like, oh, cool, a vampire. I'm like 15, so
yeah.
So I read that, and serial killers weren't as much a part of the overall pop culture zeitgeist as they are now, but there was still plenty of information. Silence of the Lambs hadn't been made into a film yet, but the book was out there, and there was of course there were lots of big cases that have already happened, including Gacy and Bundy, and Richard Ramirez was still alive at this time. If I'm not mistaken, I think Gacy had yet to be executed at this point. So, there were still a lot of serial killers to be able to contact, so to speak. And I didn't know it, but my dad had been writing Charles Manson at the time, and I knew he was interested.
Your dad was,
Yeah.
was sending letters to Charles Manson.
Yeah, my dad was kind of like he was kind of like a biker type guy, like almost like a Sons of Anarchy type guy. He kind of got me interested in some things I probably wouldn't have been interested in otherwise. But once I found out that you could access these guys through the mail, and if you're lucky, or maybe some people will say unlucky, they'll write you back. And I just tucked that away for a while, and I sort of read up more and more and more, and got more interested and more interested. And then I decided to get one of these mailing lists that has some current addresses and some division of correction numbers, which you need to write anyone who's in prison. And some of them were current, some of them weren't. So I said, well, instead of wasting all this money on stamps, on stuff that, mail that's getting returned because these people aren't in these facilities anymore, I started doing my own research and coming up with current addresses and DOC numbers for them. And I started a list, and I'd write like 3 or 4 at a time, 3 or 4 more, and then 3 or 4 more. And before you know it, I started getting letters back. The first one I got back was from the BTK Strangler, Dennis Rader. And his letters are so weird and so hard to, his handwriting is like it's cryptic. It looks like he's writing in like hieroglyphics or something. So
Do you think he's like trying to send you like sort of subliminal messages or something, like, or
no,
like
no,
do my work for me while I'm inside?
no. I think
No, okay.
he's very much aware of the value that his name has
Mhm.
in I don't know if you have in Ireland, but there's well, it's a worldwide thing. It's called murderabilia, and it's where people collect letters or any kind of artifact that was either owned by or in some way associated with a heinous
Yeah,
crime
yeah, yeah. We
or
get,
an
listen,
infamous crime.
yeah, you get, listen, there's loads of that stuff over here where people like it's more like a women would just buy stuff like that. I don't know why, but there's loads of stuff like from old Irish killings or something. Like we get serial killers here too. They're just not as, there you go. Who's that? Is that who's that?
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Jeffrey Dahmer, yes, yes, it didn't. That's yeah, that's listen. I see when it comes to serial killers and stuff. I'm into it. I read. I sorry, I listened to the audiobook once about the Golden State Killer, and I couldn't stop listening.
Oh,
It was so fascinating. I would love to come back and do all different bits and pieces about that.
yeah.
But tonight it's about
John Wayne Gacy.
John Wayne Gacy,
Yeah.
and man, this guy, what was he doing? Like, so can we? Do you know much about his early life?
Yeah. Well, I guess you want to talk about, he was born and grew up and went to high school and all those things. That's all pretty normal.
Yeah, yeah.
It's up until 1968. He's from a place in Illinois called Des Plaines, which is near Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
He marries a woman, and her father owns what we have over here are these fast food franchises, and this one is called Kentucky Fried Chicken. So his first father-in-law owns a bunch of these Kentucky Fried Chickens, and he wants John to become a manager of at least one of these places. So he moves from Chicago to Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And he's of course staffing these restaurants, fast food restaurants, with teenagers, high school students,
Mm-hmm.
just pretty much like things are today.
Mm-hmm.
Some things don't really change. So this gives him access to young boys, which that's
Right,
his
right,
kind
yeah.
of paraphilia. Really, it's not a fetish at this point, because he doesn't just want to have normal sexual contact with these boys. He wants to cause them some pretty serious harm in
So
that process.
sorry to interrupt you, is there
No, it's fine.
any, just in his early life, is there any sort of inclination that he's doing these types of things as he's a child, or like, is he trying to hurt animals? Is there
No,
any, so there's,
not with Gacy. No, there isn't
wow.
the what they call the McDonald triad, which is bedwetting, fire starting, and animal abuse. There, with Gacy, it's not as cut and dried as that. Gacy was his dad was an abusive alcoholic, and he would throttle the kids on the regular basis. Gacy was pretty close with his sister. So I guess any kind of abuse is apt to cause any kind of result. I mean, just because one person is beaten by a parent and they become a bank robber doesn't mean every kid that gets smashed in the head by his dad when he gets drunk is going to become a bank robber.
True,
So
true. That is true. Yeah.
it's not really as scientific as a lot of people would think. And as a matter of fact, the McDonald triad or hierarchy is not even really given that much credence by profilers now. I mean, after Robert Ressler and these guys worked on the big cases like Bundy and Gacy, and going into the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway, they started to learn more, and it wasn't as apparent that every one of these killers was a bedwetter, animal abuser, and fire starter. Where some of them might have did two of the things, some of them might have done one, some of them none. So that thing is kind of dated and not really used by profilers, or it's not as accurate a tool as it was once thought to be.
Yeah, there's a lot of things today that aren't, like, for instance, I know it's going off track here a little bit, but secretors, they used to use a bite marks and the secretion, so they used to convict people and send them to the death penalty, give them the death penalty for bite marks. But now the whole secretion thing and the whole bite mark sort of technology is just to just say, look, you cannot tell. It's not even 50% accurate, so they get rid of it. So yeah, it makes sense that we've updated that in 2022, and we're not using the same profiles as the 70s, 80s, and 90s. It's just doesn't, or the 60s. It just doesn't make sense. And there is no profile to a killer. We're all different, so it's a spectrum. It's a spectrum more than anything. It's not a profile. But so there's none of that in his childhood. His dad's abusive, and but as you say, not everybody that gets beat and gets throttled, gets beaten, slapped around as a child, turns out to be the same. But he actually goes, he gets given this job or something, as you say, at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and he's got access to these young boys, and then he takes advantage of that. In what way does he take advantage of that?
Well, he gets arrested in Iowa for the charge is actually sodomy, and Gacy explains it as oral sex that he says was consensual with the boy who was I believe 16. So he gets a sentence of 10 years to life. So, if he had done the whole sentence, we probably wouldn't be talking about him right now. But he, when he goes in to do his sentence in Iowa, he becomes a model inmate. Gacy is sort of an alpha male type, and whatever he does, he excels at. He's kind of like he was good at the things he did, for better or worse. Whether it was a good businessman, he started a paint and maintenance and decorating company that ended up making $1 million a year.
Wow. Gacy did.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Gacy, so while he's in prison, he gets hooked up with this group called the JCs, which is the Junior Chamber of Commerce, and they're big in the Democratic Party, and local businessmen, local politicians, and Gacy starts to get some friends in high places, and he ends up cutting his sentence way down. And while he's in there, in fact, he even gets a golf course built for the guards.
Wow.
9-hole golf course at the Iowa prison.
This guy's got pull then. He has pull.
Wow.
Yeah.
He ends up becoming friends with one of our ex-president, Jimmy Carter's wife, Rosalind Carter. Gacy goes on to become huge in local politics. Once he serves his sentence, comes back to Chicago.
What?
He's able to keep this conviction under wraps for a while. It's almost like it just goes away. And Gacy, he remarries, and this time he starts what he called DPM, decorating, or PDM, painting, decorating, and maintenance, and that is sort of a contracting company. He employs young boys again, as a source of cheap labor, but a lot of them, he's a little chubby, little like you know, cherubic type, gnome. He looks like a
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yes, yeah.
he dresses up like a clown and entertains at children's parties. And his clown persona is his name is Pogo, and that because he was Polish and he was always on the go, so he called himself Pogo. and you
Wow.
know, and if you see any interviews with the guy, if you didn't know he was one of the most heinous serial killers of all time, and you would think this guy's pretty funny, and it's easy to see how he was able to dupe these kids, especially, he would aim for kids that were kind of like, on the borderline, maybe got kids that did drugs or drank or ran away from home or had some type of issue at home, or at least perceived by him to have those kind of
Broken broken
problems.
home broken home children are probably looking for that sort of family unit. So he'll,
Right.
he's smart, he's tactile, he knows what he's doing. So
Yeah.
this if you want to profile this guy, he's actually a very intelligent guy,
Hmm.
sadistic in the brain, but he knows the avenues. He's got pull. Okay, he's like a wee small chubby dwarf guy, but at the same time, that doesn't matter, because if you've got the gift of the gab and you've got pull, then you can sort of place yourself in any walk of life and get people to do what you want. And
Sure.
that is that he did see, looking at the pictures of this guy, you wouldn't think it, but actually, just as you said that to me, it's like it all fits into place. Like, how could you just walk around as a clown, or go to a kid's birthday party as a clown? The parents would have to like you.
Right.
You have to be charming. You'd have to be out there. He was out there. But listen. So when roughly do you know his first victim?
Well, like I said, the first time he ran afoul of the law with this type of activity was 1968. 10 years later, 1978 is when he's in Chicago. He's running his contracting company. 78 is the year that everything sort of falls apart for him. There was a kid named Robert Peast, and Rob Peast was not a marginalized kid. He was not on the fringes. He had a good family. His family loved him. He was a good student, athlete, sort of what we call an all-American type kid.
Yeah.
Well, Gacy runs into him in a pharmacy, a drugstore, and the kid says, he recognizes him from some of his friends who work for him. Told him, hey, you might want to check John for a job. Check with John for a job. So he goes up to him on a parking lot and says, I understand you might be hiring. Gacy says yes. He says, matter of fact, come on over to my car. I'll give you an application and we can get the ball rolling. Well, Gacy fumbles with some papers. Oh, I don't have the application, but my house is just around the corner. Jump in my car. We'll get the application started. Well, Robert Peace says, my mom's waiting for me in front of the drugstore. He's like, don't worry about it. I'll bring you right back. So Gacy takes him to his house, which was right around the corner. It was 8213 Somerville. And he goes in, and Gacy says, oh, yeah, I'm a clown. And he starts showing him some magic tricks. And he says, let me show you this handcuff trick. Well, Gacy puts these handcuffs on and turns around, and he comes out of them. And he says, here, you try it. So Robert Peace puts the handcuffs on, and he's like, struggling with them. And he says, I can't get out. And Gacy says, well, the trick is you have to have the key. And the kid's like, well, like, oh, come on, let me out. And Gacy, of course, at that point, Gacy, goes ahead with his plans, even though he knows that Robert Peace's mother is waiting for him, So Gacy puts a tourniquet around the kid's neck and starts choking him out. He gets a phone call. He takes the call. Well, he comes back to the kid, and of course he's dead. So now Gacy's like, oh, what, okay, he's dead. What am I going to do now?
And
So
he's the young fella. His mother's waiting for him.
yeah.
Oh my God, that is crazy.
Yeah. And so
That is crazy.
at this point, Gacy's already has several victims buried in the crawl space under his house. So he has no room for Robert Peace's body. So, the cops come execute a search warrant looking for Robert Peace. He's already dead. So Gacy had dumped his body off a bridge into the river. So Robert Peace was the last body found during the entire investigation, even though he was the one who kind of started the
I understand.
brought the
this
whole thing into the spotlight.
I understand that. Yeah, this is the last victim, should you say? And he's the last to be found. But because of this situation, because it was done sporadically, and there was no real thought process to this, he just done it.
Right.
That this sort of opened the Pandora's box, or opened the way to what actually Gacy is here. And what then led them? How did they know? Right. Well, this guy is the guy, and this guy's got bodies buried under his
well. What happened is it's all if this happened in a Hollywood movie, it would have to be a comedy, because the way it unfolds, the chemistry between Gacy and the investigating detectives is just so. He knows they're watching him. He takes them. He'll go into a restaurant, sit down, order a meal, and he'll send food over to the cops' table. He'll send beer over, a couple drinks over to them. So they just end up all sitting at the same table. So they're developing this rapport where Gacy is kind of, I guess he's really shoveling his own grave, because the more comfortable he becomes with these guys, the bigger his mouth is getting. And Gacy was known to be sort of a blowhard. He would talk and talk and talk about himself. Anything pertaining to him, he was ready to talk about.
Narcissism. Then there's
he's 100% narcissist. Mm-hmm. And so these guys are trained to try to get criminals to incriminate themselves. Gacy is easy pickings for him. So they watch him, they follow him, they get another search warrant to execute on his house. Now they go in. Now, the whole time this is happening, there's this pervasive stench coming from Gacy's house. He tells everybody it's the pipes are bad, the sewage is bad. He's got 28 decaying corpses buried in the crawl space of his house.
So they're not even buried in soil, where the
just shallow graves with a little sprinkling of lime.
Wow.
And that's it.
Lime.
Yeah, lime.
That's the decay the body's faster, and they're not spread.
And then to hold the smell down. So once they get there, the cops. This is the part that's really funny, because this is happening around during the Christmas season, 1978. So Gacy actually invites these cops over for dinner, and they're all sitting at the table, and it stinks to the high heavens. It reeks in his house. Even his neighbors have complained. Gacy, what is this smell? Why does your house stink like that? But because he was so enmeshed with the Junior Chamber of Commerce and other local politicians, he was able to sort of say, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Any zoning laws or anything like that he might have been sort of not squared up with, it was okay because Gacy had enough pull to have everything overlooked. But when these detectives are at his house, having dinner with him, of course they smell it too. But the one cop excuses himself to use the bathroom. He goes in, and the heating vent is right there. Well, he opens the heating vent, and this huge, just gust of putrid,
Death,
decaying, like
death, just
death, just reaching out of the vent.
Yeah.
And so he's like, "Oh my God, I know what that smell is. That's a dead body, So he keeps his mouth shut for that, for that night. Gets another search warrant, and they come through and they just level the place, and they're just pulling body after body, and it's like, it's not even bodies anymore. It's just skeletonized.
Yeah, they're just remains. Was there people going missing around the area where?
Yes. Every one of them, every one of the kids that they pulled out of his basement was missing. But what Gacy would do is he would write letters to the people's parents and say, "Oh, I'm moving to Detroit or something like this. I'm getting a job. I don't want to come home. I'm moving here. I got a job offer there." So to kind of, put them just sort of off the trail, but it was only a temporary stay of execution, so to speak. He was not doing anything to where the people were like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense. I'll never look for my kid again." He was just, And then when they did do the search warrant, they found this guy's school ring that had the initials JS on it. So this was a guy named Jonathan Sick, who was missing. Obviously, he was in Gacy's crawl space. They found driver's license, all these other things that would implicate Gacy in these murders. But it didn't matter because the very first interrogation, Gacy said everything. He just said, "Look, this is what happened. This is who's there. This is," and then, the cops were amazed. They were like, he just came right out with it. And he was talking about it in such a matter of fact way that they were like, "I can't believe what we're hearing." So they had to do take another confession from him with lawyers present and other officials, and he was all right to do that one too.
I think he was building up. See, personally, just what you're telling me there, right? Just my little opinion. It could be wrong, but I think what this guy was doing, he knew he was going to get caught, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he wanted to be prolific. I think he wanted to be infamous. He knew what he was doing. He was getting in with the cops. He had all these kids killed and buried in a shallow lime grave in his house, and this was his time. This was his time to shine. It was all going to come out, and he was a wee small chubby guy that had, he had a few things going for him. Obviously, he had money and stuff, but at the same time, he wanted to be infamous. He wanted to be out there. He wanted to be famous regardless. And he got that fame because we're talking about him today.
Right.
It's just a crazy the level of narcissism people have.
Yeah, well, Gacy's not that different than any of the other serial killers in that respect. You got guys like Luca Magnotta and guys who want to be in the that infamy is good enough. It's like if you're not going to be able to have fame, infamy will work. People will still be talking about you.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So, what sort of, if you mind me asking, because this is what you're here to ask the questions, but so whenever did he just kill these young boys, or was he doing sexual things to them?
No, he was raping them and strangling them. There's some indication that he was keeping them for sometimes maybe 1 or 2 days. And I don't want to go down another rabbit hole, but
Oh, yeah, go down
there's
the rabbit hole. Go down the rabbit hole.
well, there was another serial killer operating almost identically to Gacy's motives and methods.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Dean Coral. He was in Houston, Texas, and he was a part of this nationwide, or some say worldwide, network of mostly rich guys, but if not rich, certainly like there were some teachers in there. There were some a lot of clergy, and what they were doing was supplying boys to other pedophiles, and Dean Coral was he was very much like Gacy, and Gacy talked about this this huge sort of, I don't want to say syndicate or shadow. It's a proven fact that this thing existed, and the guys that were involved in it were well connected. Financially, they were set up. They had an island that later came back into the news when Epstein and these guys were arrested and all caught up in the child sex scandals with the girls, taking the young girls to this island.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was nothing new. These guys had been doing that in the 70s, and Gacy,
Wow.
well, he never named names. He said, if you think this is just me, I mean, if you think about it, he killed 33 boys, 28 buried in his house, and then 5, I think 2 thrown in the river and 3 buried in his yard. But I mean, this is one guy, 33 kids. I mean,
do you think, right? So if you had to make a decision and say, gun to your head, was Gacy involved in something bigger than himself?
oh yes, I absolutely believe he was
A ring
involved
of
in bigger, something bigger.
like it's crazy. Every time we speak about these stories, or I speak to somebody about either a serial killer, or sorry, my laptop's just going to die there, a serial killer or something along those lines, everybody has this connection to other sort of pedophiles, serial killers, and they all seem to be upper class from this, from the late 60s to the right up until the 2000s. Upper class, a lot of money, school teachers or whatever, and they're involved in these rings of people who do really bad things. And then when you go up to the sort of the other tier of the pyramid, they've got islands. So you're seeing stuff like Jeffrey Epstein. So this thing now, okay, there isn't a bipartisan view that this is actually going on all the time, but there's this thing with this island. There's an island thing. It's like the total privacy. I can do what I want. I can bring kids in. And I did not know that about Gacy. I didn't know that he himself was sort of not ratting to the cops, but he was saying, look, you think this is big? You want to see what else is out there. That's crazy, man. So like, just to stick on the point of Gacy here, where does so did he kill any of these young boys and do any of these sick sexual things to these young boys while dressed as a clown?
That's funny. Not funny. I mean, but that's something that, because of the movie It and Pennywise and people they call Gacy the killer clown and everything. But no, he never killed anyone while he was dressed as he had 2 personas. One was Pogo and one was Patches, and he didn't do, he would have these block parties where especially on the 4th of July, which is, like the American Independence Day, and he would dress up like, George Washington or some other patriotic character from history, and he would everybody would be there. Everybody would be at Gacy's parties, and when he was chairman of the Junior Chamber of Commerce, all these guys did was get together and watch porno films. They had these, what they called stag films back then, and they would be, on like 8mm reels. So he would rent a hotel, and they'd throw their little JC's party and membership drive. And Gacy would say, look, we're going to watch these movies. Well, we have some girls here, which they'd have prostitutes there. And he would kind of introduce this sort of hedonistic vibe to it and say, look, we all have these ideas and these notions, and it's not bad. And kind of, I guess, trying to downplay what he was about to be exposed for. And I think he knew that it was eventually going to, come to the forefront. So if he could drag some other people down with him, maybe that's not so bad. But at the same time, Gacy never did rat on anyone. He never said, well, look, it was this guy, that guy, this guy. He just said, follow the evidence. Follow.
Do you believe he was in a satanic cult?
Gacy?
Yeah.
I don't think Gacy was. He was. I don't think there was anything satanic about him. I think, they're not like Richard Ramirez, who was a self-professed Satanist. I think, if you're Christian, Catholic, or whatever, you're going to have to say Gacy was, at least somewhat satanic for what he was doing. But I don't think he was sacrificing or anything like that. I think he was this was his paraphilia. His thing was he liked young boys, and he got off on raping and killing them, and that's just somebody who is geared to enjoy something so far beyond, human, the ability to comprehend a mind that enjoys inflicting this kind of terror and this kind of pain. It's you're talking about somebody like the Marquis de Sade or Joseph Mengele. You're talking about torture and torment. And I think that not many people can look inside themselves and find any sympathy for a person like that. And
no, definitely not.
And I'm not saying they deserve any. And certainly, I'm definitely not here to preach about anything. As far as like religious aspects and spiritual aspects, I don't even know where I stand. Being raised Catholic, I've been involved and read up on just about every religion there is, and I think to be able to say, what, this guy did terrible things, but I forgive him. Ultimately, what does that mean? I don't know him. I don't know any of the victims. Who cares if I forgive him?
True.
So, I just look at it as Gacy's interesting as hell. What he did was terrible. I don't condone or profess to say, oh, it's okay to kill anyone. I certainly think there are diminishing degrees of culpability, and say if somebody breaks in my house and I kill them, Is that the same thing as tying a boy up, raping him, and killing him? Of course it's not.
Definitely
Of
not.
course it's
Definitely
not.
not.
You know.
I always, I always say, like, look, people. There is certain people out there that you can see their play. I see them on Twitter. Actually, there was one woman on Twitter, and she was saying, "Why do we not? We cause serial killers. We are the people that make people kill in the streets. We're the ones that made them be a serial killer. We should let them out and teach them how to live." Now, okay, to a certain degree, she might be right about society, but what you're essentially saying there is look at America, for instance. One of the okay, it's got its problems like every other country. One of the greatest country on planet Earth, right? For what it does, it places the whole planet, right? So inside this country, you have this weird thing going on from like the 40s right up until the late 90s, where there's these serial killers, and they're living in the greatest country on planet Earth. So what is the cause for this? It's not a society. It's not society creating these people, because everybody has a choice at the end of the day. Somebody breaks into your house and they threaten to kill your family, or they threaten to kill you. You're going to kill them. Are you going to give them what they want, or are you going to kill them? Straight. That's what's going to happen. But there's no way, shape, or form is that the same thing as going out and actually hunting down young boys, young girls, men, women, whatever you're doing, and killing them, knowing that this is wrong for your own sexual gratification. That's, for me, that takes a level of narcissism, a level of crazy that obviously me and you will never know. But thinking about Gacy though, he's in it. He's got this lifestyle where he's with the cops. He's putting on these porno shows for people. He's in this life. He's sort of a very sexually active person, regardless if he's killing and raping young boys or not. Did he struggle with being gay? I heard something that he was gay, and he couldn't come to terms with his homosexuality.
Yes, he was always gay. I don't think he was ever bisexual. I think he was able to maintain relationships with women. I think just more or less to save face.
Right.
I mean, his father was sort of like a man's man. I mean, that's why he named him John Wayne, after his favorite actor, who is the cowboy, John Wayne. So Gacy was, he came out of the womb with some big boots to fill, so to speak. I mean, he was, his dad wanted him to be, a football player, or, some sort of manly man. Gacy was kind of, for as big as he was kind of effeminate. He was not athletic. He was not a ladies' man. He was not anything that his father really wanted him to be. I think that from the beginning, Gacy was attracted to boys when he was a boy. But right. I don't think that, and during that time, it's not like today. Like today, you see people saying, "Oh, my 4-year-old son came out." Oh yeah, well, he hasn't reached the age of understanding or comprehension. So
yeah,
you know what I mean. It's not like today. It's almost like a badge. Oh, I have a gay son.
They're the real psych. See the parents that do that, that come out and say like they're only like 3, and they're saying, "Oh, my son or my daughter's trans or something." You're like, whoa,
right?
Are you like, you need to be looked into here, because
if you're
that's
like, child abuse.
Yeah, if you're
absolute child abuse.
Listen, it's okay to be trans. Like, obviously,
of course it is. Trans, when you make that decision for yourself.
Yeah, but like,
not when your parents start dressing you up in the opposite genders. Like if my grandparents wanted me to, because I was raised by my grandparents, if they started dressing me in little girls' clothes and things of that nature, that's going to affect, but I mean, of course, I grew up listening to New York Dolls. I mean, I have worn dresses myself. So.
But you're a punk. You're that's not a punk in the jail sense, because I know if you call you guys a punk in jail, it's on. You have to fight.
Oh yeah.
Right. Listen. Just to say this here, guys. Shawn. Hopefully, Shawn will come back on. I want him to do like a prison series with me, because I want to know about the American prison system. We have our own guy. We have our own guy here in Ireland and the UK, Shawn Atwood, he ran an ecstasy ring in Arizona, and he got involved with Sammy the Bull's son and all the rest.
Oh
And
yeah, I
yeah,
know about that story.
so, well, anyway, Shawn breaks down the whole American prison system, and he breaks it down very well. But I want to sort of get on my guests that have been in prison in America, Ireland, England, all around the world, and sort of have my guests that can come on and speak about that. And you have these stories, and hopefully you'll be able to come back on and do like a prison series.
I'd love to.
I couldn't get over. You can call somebody a cunt, but if you call them a punk, you're fighting. You're fighting. So you're listen, cunt, get me that drink. Yeah, of course, sir, no problem. No drink. Listen, punk, get me that drink. What did you say? We're going for a square go here. It's listen, it's crazy. The American prison system is crazy. But listen, we're not here to talk about that. But I could talk about that for like 4 hours. It's so fascinating. But so Gacy. So we're like let's round up Gacy here. So there's no telltale signs as when he's a kid. No. When he hits about 15, 16, he's given this job in like a Kentucky Fried Chicken.
No. He was actually already married and he a full grown adult when he got the Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Okay, right.
He was he had moved from Chicago to Iowa to because his wife's father was like, look, this guy. I think what it was is he thought he was kind of a loser. So he was like, I'm going to give him a job as a manager in one of my restaurants because he's married to my daughter. He needs to provide for her.
Yeah.
So I think that was the case.
Yeah. And then he sort of, there's no telltale signs, but this guy he's got the gift of the gab. He's well informed. He's living this life as he gets older. He's sending over beers to the cops and these in the diners, and he's got his fingers in pies here that, there's telltale signs that this guy's trying to wean people and sort of groom. He's grooming adults, sort of, you know what I mean? And he's killing these kids, and he's raping these kids, and he's burying them in his house. And so he gets caught with this kid, right? With this one kid, and the cop opens up the cap, smells the death, and then this opens the box, should you say? So. Mm-hmm. What's how does the trials go in America? Does he spend a long time on death row? Did he die? Did he die because of through lethal injection or whatever? Or was did he die?
Well, he was ever since he was picked up for the in 78. He never got out. That was it.
What age was he when he went? 40s.
Yeah.
In his 40s, early 40s, I think he was in his early 40s.
Yeah.
Late 40s. Yeah, and then so that was 70.
That was 78. That was 78.
78, and then so he gets, what is it called? Not an acquittal, but he keeps getting it put back where you don't get like killed.
He keeps appealing his in America what happens is when you receive the death sentence, a capital murder case, and you get the death penalty, there are automatic appeals to go into place whether you want them or not.
Right.
So he goes through his appeals process, and while Gacy's on death row, he becomes very vocal about he writes a book. He starts doing these paintings and selling them, and he's living as good as you can live in prison, and he's getting visitors from all over the world, and most of them are young guys, so he's loving it, and admittedly, a lot of these guys were going there, guys who were gay were going there just to be like, experience this sort of like, oh, this guy would kill me if he could, that kind of danger. I mean, to me, it's a little crazy, it's a little twisted.
Yeah, no. So there's these guys going into the jails, like gay guys going into the jails, and they're like sort of getting off on the fact that this guy's this prolific
Yeah, kind of
They
like poking at a tiger, like
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a thing with that though with women, isn't there, where women will actively say, like, want to marry serial
Oh
killers. That
yeah, Richard Ramirez. I mean, and Bundy. They were. I mean, Ramirez had just a ridiculous amount of women visitors. I mean, so many that there would be a line, and people, and some they would argue and fight in the line because they were like, "I'm going to see him to no, I'm going to," it's like he had women fighting over him.
and were they allowed? Was he allowed to sleep with those women? Were these sort
No,
of
no,
right? So
no,
there's no
no
none.
conjugal
Yeah,
visits. I
yeah.
think conjugal visits, at least where they are a thing, you have to be married and you have to have I think it's not an easy process. I think
Yeah,
they don't.
yeah.
But now where what Bundy actually conceived a child during his one of his visits.
Hmm.
He got into friendly with one of the guards who would do the visiting room, and he paid him to look the other way for a while. So when his
Oh my
his
God,
female visitor came,
that's crazy.
he got
That's
busy
crazy.
behind the
He
Coke machine.
Tell you what, would you come back and do a Bundy one with me? Because the
Oh, sure.
Bund. Listen, I know. Listen, I didn't want to I just didn't want to go for that one, because that's the low hanging fruit. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
You want to get the other ones out. See, Ramirez, that one, I really want to know about him, but we'll have to come back and
I
do a
got to
Bundy
tell
one for me.
you, as crazy as it sounds for somebody to say, "Oh, I have a favorite serial killer," but
No, man, listen, I understand.
Richard Ramirez is like somebody I've read up on so much, and I guess I kind of gravitated toward him because of the kind of rock and roll vibe that he had. He
Hmm.
was a big heavy metal fan, and he talked about music a lot, and um, you know, there's that sort of bad boy image. I guess the same thing that attracts the women will attract young guys that are like hey,
He
like
looks
I'm
like
over.
Richard Ramirez, isn't it? He looked like he could join One Direction. It looks like if he lived today, he would be singing on X Factor. Do you know what I mean? He just has that, or if he would be like a bass guitarist for the Sex Pistols or something. But
Yeah,
this,
yeah, yeah. I could see that. I always pictured him more of like Andrew Eldridge from the Sisters of Mercy because of the glasses and the black hair. But
crazy, man.
or
Yeah, crazy. But listen. But anyway, listen. We're going off here because this is what we're saying. We could talk for about 6 hours. We could do a 6 hour podcast just about serial killers. This is what I'm like. But so to stick on Gacy, so
Mhm.
Gacy, then he's in jail. There's these gay guys coming in. They're sort of it's a very sexual atmosphere in jail.
Yes.
Is jail a bad thing for Gacy because he's into this type of shit? He's into like sadistic sort of sexual things. Not that there's any. I'm not saying being gay sadistic, but what I'm saying
Right,
is
right, right.
he's
No.
into this sort of like weird fucking you know killing people
Mhm.
and raping them and stuff. Jail's right up. Jail's his cup of tea. That's his cup of tea. So he's
Right.
actually he's in a place where he's probably enjoying what's going on.
I don't think he enjoyed it because Gacy was the type of guy who enjoyed being able to go, and he would go out on a lot of nights and just cruise for guys and look for runaways and things of that nature. So I think I think he did assimilate to jail. I think that he did kind of do a better job um, acclimating himself to the surroundings and to the living within the parameters that he could, as far as doing his artwork, as far as maintaining a wide uh, array of different visitors, people that were willing to fly in from different parts of the country, selling his artwork, people sending him money for art supplies, um, and he was able to keep, um, I guess, put his best foot forward in that situation. to me, when somebody kills or is convicted or even charged with killing 33 people, and you're telling me that the insanity plea is off the table, I don't get that. I
Neither
don't
do
get
I.
that. If you
He's
kill
definitely
33
insane. Like,
boys and bury them in your own house, you're insane.
of course,
You
yeah.
are insane. And so for Gacy to be executed, I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't know where I am on capital punishment. I know that I'm a typical American when it comes to certain cases. When I hear, this person raped a child, I'm kill him, hang him, torture him. I feel all those things, and then I say, uh, well, look, this guy is insane. He killed all these people. He drilled into their heads. He did this. He dismembered them. That's insanity. He's
So just sorry,
schizophrenic.
So just let's actually just if you have the time, let's actually talk about what Gacy done to his victims, right? So
Okay.
what was the actual? I know that he raped them, right? But
Mhm.
let's face it here, right? There's
He
what was the torture, the stuff that he would do to his victims? Because I heard it was quite brutal.
Well, he had this came from Dean Coral. They both had these things that that ended up being called a torture board, which was essentially a length of plywood with holes drilled in it, where the victim could be strapped to the board, hands up, legs down, either on their stomach or on their back.
Wow.
And once you're in there in that position, you're defenseless. And so, Gacy would do that. He would rape them. And I'm sure he was, he was brutal in the sense of he used tourniquets with a rope and a stick to strangle them where he could turn it. He knew exactly how much pressure to apply to kill them, and then he'd let off, and then he'd tighten it back up. So he wanted to have that power over
He
life and death.
drilled into their heads, did he? He drilled into their heads.
No, that was Dahmer. I was just throwing that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
yeah.
that's some. Listen, that to do that, you have to have you like as I say. I think people are born with this. Is no way diminishing or making excuses for this guy, but you know the way some people are born with a disability. You can be born with autism. Like I've got an autistic son. You can be born with a physical disability, right?
Sure.
I believe that some people are born into this earth with no feelings or no emotion and just pure narcissists, and they only see in front of their face and what's going to make them feel good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for him to do that, he didn't care about that person, like that young child sitting there as he tortured and raped them. He just wanted to get this made him feel good, and I'm going to do it. And this human life doesn't mean a thing. That's that's scary that people can be born with that, and it's crazy. Like
he felt nothing more for these boys than a guy who buys a porno mag and masturbates to it and then throws it away. That's what these boys were to him. They were a means to an end. Wow. That was his, his paraphilia. He was a guy who needed to inflict pain in order to achieve any kind of sexual enjoyment. I mean, he stopped any kind of involvement with his wife, his second wife, very early on in their marriage. And that sent up flags for her. So, she knew that he was at least gay. She didn't suspect him of killing these boys, but she knew that he was up to something as far as,
Yeah, she knew, like, you could just imagine that. Like, but who's going to think it does? Like, there's a lot of men in relationships with women that are gay, and they don't want to be in that relationship, and they shouldn't be in that relationship, but they were forced into it through what society, or they don't want to come out, and they just have this shame. And but nobody would think that we'll have to differentiate between somebody who's in a relationship, because I know a lot of people that are in relationships and I know that they're gay. I just don't say it. But
Right.
I would never think, well, that person is out there murdering young boys or young women to just for their own sexual gratification. It takes that is so to me it's rare. But actually, when you look into it, when you Google this stuff, it's actually not that. It's not as rare as what you think. Apparently,
No.
there's loads of these people in India, Russia. They're all over. They're just not televised because
Right.
America is Hollywood. We're hearing about it in America, but
Right.
actually, it's all over the world. But
Yes, some of the
it's
most
crazy. Like,
prolific serial killers of all time are from Poland. They're
yeah,
I mean, you have Chikatia, you have Anna Priyanka, who was called the Terminator. I mean, this guy would just walk in to a home, someone's home where they're sitting down to dinner, and just go in with an assault weapon and just kill everyone in the house, and then go to another house and do the same thing.
that's different though. I find that type of killing is more like a mass murder or something. But like I don't know the difference between a mass murder and a serial killer. But like serial killing, like when we think about a serial killer, we think of a John Wayne Gacy, a creepy clown that's just waiting to snatch somebody from the street, take them back to the house, rape them, and murder them. That's what we think a serial killer is.
Right.
But they actually think in our heads that there's maybe a person out there that would just go into a house with an AK-47 or an M16, just go in and just blitz everybody and then move on to the next house and not get caught for a while. For some reason, this is going to sound weird, even though it's just as horrific, doesn't seem as bad as John Wayne Gacy, what he's doing to his victims. It's really strange. It's really strange.
It's because so many things come in to temper our opinions, and when a person is forcing their violent will upon a child or a defenseless person, like, let's say, an old woman, or something like that, it seems much worse than somebody who goes in and let's say kills 30-year-old guys who are have a chance of defending themselves.
100%.
At the end of the day, like Richard Ramirez said, killing is killing, whether it's done for duty, pleasure, or fun.
True.
I mean, killing is the act of taking someone's life. Now, we as human beings, we come in and we place a value on that life. We don't do it consciously, but we look at it and we say, oh, he killed a young girl or a young boy. He could have been a president. He could have cured cancer. He could have done this. He could have been another serial killer himself. We don't know. Yeah. But you see what I'm saying? It's like
I get you.
We want to fill in that narrative in the best way possible to make the perpetrator the worst, most evil person we can. And in that respect, we can say, execute them.
Yeah, I get you. And America is America is a very strange place for the whole execution business. It's like it's the pinnacle of what the world should be, but at the same time, they kill certain people. And listen, if it was me, I wouldn't be killing a John Wayne Gacy. I think that's too good for him, to be honest with you. I would be studying him. I'd be studying this guy. I'd be waiting, right? Let's wait for technology to get better and scan this guy's brain, just in case we can learn. Maybe we can pick up from a very young age.
Well, he left his brain to science. His brain was dissected, and
I'm sure that was an interesting.
It was his. There was no obvious differences between Gacy's brain and anyone else's. So that kind of though it wasn't as interesting as, you know, I'd hoped. It was interesting in and of itself to say, well, you know, the equipment that he was equipped with at you know, at the time of purchase, like as if he were an automobile, was no different than any other model. You know, so it's not nature. There's something else. There's something else going wrong. It's not it's not the let's say it's not the automobile, it's the kind of gasoline that you're putting in it. It's the, you know, it's the
correct. Yeah, brilliant.
and what happens, it's experience, it's upbringing. There's so many things that go into making a person who they are, what they are, for better or worse, you know. And there's so many instances where people say, well, if we take this person who had every advantage at birth and took them out of that and put them in the ghetto, they would still rise and become a successful person because they're geared that way. I don't really believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, you just, this is the thing. We don't know. We just don't know. It's like, we just don't know.
No.
We just don't know. It's just what makes me and you different. Though you're in Maryland right now, I'm in Ireland. We don't know each other. I could be a serial killer. You could be a serial killer, but more than likely we're not. But
Right.
we just have to trust. Yeah, we just have to trust society. It's a very strange. It's a very strange. It's like it's a glitch in the matrix. It's a glitch in the matrix.
Well, look at it this way. I tell this to my wife all the time. Without the trust that you just spoke of, society begins to break down very quickly. If I don't trust a stranger to stop at a red light, and I go through the green light and he doesn't, you know, I'm going to pay the price for that, you know. But because, you know, society is set up in such a way that there are laws and there are societal norms and these things that we instinctively trust that the other person is going to do, that's the only way this works. You know, without that, you know, you couldn't leave your house because, is my neighbor going to kill me? I don't know. I don't trust him. You know what I mean? So,
well, the thing about it is, Shawn, Gacy seemed to be an outstanding citizen. He's he's not the type of guy to go through a red light and run over a child.
Right.
He's the type of guy. This is the type of guy Gacy is. He's the type of guy to give off to somebody that does that, a drunk that does that, or whatever. Right? Take the family in because of their shock of nearly being ran down, and then murder them when nobody's looking.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's like it's which pick your evil here. Pick your evil, because you know it's just crazy. But listen, I want to just get to the bottom of Gacy here. So right, when was Gacy executed? Then what year was he executed?
1992.
92. And how did that go? Was there any weird scenarios surrounding that?
Yes, it was. It wasn't sort of your textbook execution. There were problems with it. Some of the well, first of all, there was complete circus atmosphere around the execution. There are people standing outside of the prison with signs, you know, kill the clown and burn Gacy, burn, and all, you know, all this kind of like sort of turning it into I don't know, just to me that's barbaric. You know, I mean, that is, you know, if you're going to kill somebody, and whether it's state-funded murder, which is what capital punishment ultimately is, or whether it's you're standing outside of Gacy's house cheering, you know, for him to kill the boys. What's the difference? You're still cheering for blood. That might be a little too like ultra liberal for some people, and
No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Where do we draw the line here? Okay, right. This person's done a really bad thing. He probably deserves to die. Actually, he does deserve to die. But are we just as bad for killing a person like this and wanting his blood than him
right.
himself doing this? Should we lead by example and say, well, hold on here 2 seconds. Let's get to the bottom of why these people do this.
Yes.
We're not going to give them an easy life. We're going to put
No,
them in
life in prison is not like letting somebody get away with something at all. Life in prison is punishment, and to a degree that anyone who hasn't been there cannot get their head around. And I'm here to tell you that a prison sentence is nothing to take lightly, whether it's a year, 10 years, or life. It's going to impact your life. It's going to affect you as a person, and it's going to change you.
Yeah, and the places that would be putting Gacy, for instance, would be even far worse than just say general population in prison.
Sure, right.
They'd be putting this guy into a hole. Well, you would like to think that he wouldn't be treated kindly. That you would like to think that there is some type of beatings going on a regular basis. That he done this to these kids, and he deserves to have this. Okay, we're not going to kill him, but we're going to make sure that this guy's suffering for the time that he's on this planet, because nobody deserves to live a good life after that, regardless if it's prison or outside of prison. But so he's then executed in 92, and so whenever leading up to the execution, is he trying to appeal this? Is he trying to get away from this, or is he just accepting that he's?
Yeah, he's trying to get anyone who will listen. He recants his confessions. He starts talking about the other people who are involved. He starts, I guess, sort of as that last ditch effort. He wants to play that final ace and say, look,
right,
what do you want me to do? I'll tell you. A lot of serial killers do this thing where they call it bones for time, where I tell you where these bodies are, you give me some more time.
It's like currency.
Yeah, it's
He's like he's kept a couple of bodies lying somewhere, or he knows of bodies of other serial killers or whatnot, just as a little ace, as you say. So when the time comes, then I can use that to maybe not be sort of killed.
Right, and Bundy was one, probably the most famous for doing that, but Gacy didn't really do that. He just said, there's more to this story. I'll give this. I've never given an interview. I'll give an interview. I'll do this. I'll do that. And he starts talking about how these other people are implicated in his case. And of course, once it got down to his final appeal, everybody, the officials, prison officials, anybody who was involved with it was like, enough. This is it for Gacy. You know what I mean? We need to get rid of this guy. And, so Gacy, he goes into the execution room. He tries to, kind of, I guess, put the best face on he can. And so when they ask him any last words, he says, yeah, kiss my ass.
Wow.
And those were his last words.
Wow, what an absolute asshole. Like, what an absolute asshole of a man. That is crazy. Yeah. So he actually, his last words are,
kiss my ass.
Kiss my ass. Wow, he's good. That's the highway to hell.
Oh,
That's the highway to hell. He did, like, if you believe in a demonic entity, it has to be Gacy. I know that there's other we're going to get into the Ramirez's in the future, and we'll do a few of these if you would like to come back.
Oh, sure, yeah, definitely.
But like, to say that there's not, I'm sorry, I apologize. Can you get a priest in here? Get anybody, whatever he is, get somebody in here to make sure that if there is an afterlife, that I'm going to the better place, not the pits of hell. He doesn't care. He didn't give a shit. Kiss my ass.
Kiss my ass. Yep.
That's it. That's it. And what was the aftermath of that? Was there people? Was there fans of his that were like? Because I knew you had a few fans, didn't he?
Oh yeah, yes,
he had
yes,
loads of fans,
yes.
didn't he? Yeah.
Gacy,
It was like a big thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, Gacy. I would say Gacy is probably wow. He's still pretty popular as far as I mean his letters, his paintings, they bring more money than the only serial killer that I would say brings in more money is Bundy. I mean, Bundy's letters go for ridiculous money. You know, I don't have letters from either one. I have some pictures of from Gacy when he was in prison, but I don't have anything signed. I had a chance to get something there was some court papers that had his signature on them. Actually, it was for his final appeal, but I bought a guitar instead.
Fair play, man. Listen, the guitar's going to suit you better. I'm not going to lie to you. But listen, just so he's dead. Just to round this up, you yourself, Shawn, you actually speak to serial killers via Skype, and you write to them in letters. Do you want to explain to the people how did you get involved in that, and why did you want to get involved in that?
Sure. Well, yeah, at the beginning I kind of touched on it, but when I got the letter, my first letter back from BTK, and I started writing to him, it was almost more like work than something for fun, because he's not a very friendly guy, and his letters are they're very weird, and he also feels like anything that he signs or draws on or writes is worth a certain amount of money, and he wants money deposited into his account. And
narcissism.
So I only lasted about a year corresponding with BTK, and but during that time I was talking to others, and I got one of the serial killers that I started corresponding with is imprisoned in Maryland. And so I thought, well, you know, I have a lot I can talk to him about, because, you know, I have some experience with the Maryland prison system. So, you know, let me try to talk to this guy about.
What was his name, and what was his sort of what was his name, and what was his
name is Haddon Clark.
And what was his sort of what did he do to sort of warrant himself a serial killer? He
killed he killed. It's so weird to get a total, like, actual body count on Haddon, because I think as far as the record goes, he's found guilty of 3 murders, but he confessed to far more than that, and there's plenty of evidence to
that's the
prove
norm.
That he has a bucket full of jewelry from victims. And so he was from New England. He traveled all around the East Coast. You know, he's a guy who's lived an insane life. He was a baker. He worked in 100 restaurants and hotels. He's a groundskeeper, a landscaper. So we just started talking, and then when COVID I said, well, look, Haddon, maybe since he's about 3 hours from me, and so I said, maybe I'll make a day trip down and come see you. So I was planning to do that, but then COVID happened, so they started doing the visits via Skype. So we started talking to one another on Skype, and I mean, we've been corresponding for almost 5 years now,
Wow.
and he's 71 years old now. He's and I think of him as just because he's schizophrenic. He's the prison. Not only do the prison employees treat him like crap, the rest of the other inmates are treat him horribly. So I kind of try to
But
look out for him.
he's got a genuine like he's schizophrenic, so that guy
Yes.
maybe he shouldn't be in a jail. He should be
No.
in a psychiatric unit where
Yes.
he's being treated because he's highly dangerous. Okay, he's 71, but he does have schizophrenia and he's acting upon impulses because there's lots of people out there that have schizophrenia.
Oh, I certainly think he could kill somebody else, even at his advanced age. I mean, he works out every day. He's in pretty good shape. I'm not advocating for his release. I don't think he needs to be out on the streets walking around. I think within a month he would kill somebody else. So
Yeah,
I don't think that, but I think that he could benefit more from being in a psychiatric lockdown facility.
yeah,
I mean, I'm biased because I love the guy. I think of him as strangely as family at this point. I mean, he talks to my wife. He sends us Christmas cards. He does these little drawings for us. He's Haddon. I don't think of him as anything but I
but
don't call him Haddon the serial killer or
yeah, but there is that whenever it doesn't matter who it is, if you build up a relationship with somebody and that what they've done in the past, plus he's a 71-year-old man,
Mhm.
like you've just said it yourself, if he gets out, so you're not so detached where you think, oh, this guy should get out because he's totally harmless. If he gets out, he's probably going to kill somebody else.
Mhm.
But with the relationship that you have via Skype, and speaking to each other and
Mhm.
stuff, that actually, this is as good as it's going to get. And apart from a serial killing that he done in the past, he's actually not the worst of people to speak to.
Right.
But it's the added, as you say, it's the added. There's an extra piece there because he was a serial killer.
Right.
But that's crazy. Would you come back and also do a talk about that?
Yeah. I
That
also
would be
have
cool.
one of my other favorite pen pals is David Berkowitz, the son of Sam. We've been talking
Wow.
for about 3 years, and I tell you, I suffer from depression, and strangely, I'm able to talk to David more than my own therapist and get more input from him, because
Wow.
he's a very spiritual person now. Like I said, I don't, I was raised Catholic. I guess I consider myself Catholic, but I don't, I haven't been to mass in quite some time.
Same.
I don't do what I should, but
But listen, man, that's another topic to
yeah,
for people to have for one day show up and go to this or go every day. Some people go every day, but who's to say such and such isn't as religious as me, or I'm
right.
not as religious as them because they choose to live. Listen, as long as you're not doing harm unto others and you're living your life, try to sort of in a pure way, and you're trying to just get better every day, then you're a good person. And sort of fuck anybody that says to you, that you should be doing this or you should be doing that. Do you know what I
I
mean?
agree.
It's just it's very that's narcissism in itself. I find a little tad. But listen, you've spoke to a load of these people. Son of Sam, listen, that is crazy that you're in contact with that person.
Mhm.
I really want to get you back to talk about all these things. I'm really glad that that you chose to come onto my channel to do this.
Yeah, it was
Um,
a blast. I love it.
listen, what we're going to have to end it here because it's at the hour and a half mark. But
Okay.
listen, Shawn, big shout out to you, mate. You're brilliant to talk to. Me and you talked 2 days ago, and I could have talked to you for just on the phone for about 3 hours.
Absolutely.
You're so knowledgeable in all these things and just all other subjects. But you're going to come back. You're going to do a couple of other things. You're going to do a prison series and talk a bit more of the serial killers and contact that you've made with serial killers over the years, and that will be fantastic. So we're going to end it here, Shawn.
Okay.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, because I find everything that Shawn says as really, really interesting. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and peace.
Thank you.